With more and more movies easily available on streaming services, it's harder to know what's worth watching and what might be a waste of your time. There are many hidden gems out there waiting to be discovered, and we want to help you find them. This is Trailer Rewind, a podcast where JJ and I, your virtual video store klooks, sift through the shelves to help you discover new favorites. Today is October 26th, 2021, and Antebellum is available to stream on Hulu. Because what's available on streaming services can change, it's possible that by the time you're listening to this show, that this has changed. You can easily find where Antebellum is streaming using a service like JustWatch.com. If you're on Letterboxd and have a patron or pro account, JustWatch is integrated into your account, so when you look at the Trailer Rewind watch list or Trailer Rewind episode list, you can easily see where a film is currently available. If you don't have a patron or pro Letterboxd account, you can get a 20% discount at truestory.fm/letterboxd. So JJ, let's take a look at the trailer to see what Antebellum is all about.
911. What is your emergency? Hello? 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 Are you there? Is anyone with you? Can you get to a safe area? Hello?
It's not about that. No,
It is not about that. And
no,
I guess our first warning would be:
don't watch the trailer.
if you haven't seen the trailer, don't watch the trailer.
It's not that it's
first.
not about that either. It's generally about that, but your experience of the film is going to be completely diminished if you pay attention to the trailer, because it changes some things. It changes the way the story is told. This trailer starts 40 minutes into the film. There's so much. You just do not see. It's much better to watch Antebellum without the knowledge of what the trailer is going to give you, because it unlocks things that don't need to be unlocked.
Watch the trailer afterwards and see what you think about it. But yeah, I would say go into this one without any knowledge of the trailer or anything like that.
And we tend to say, what is the trailer selling? The trailer is selling what's behind the curtain. But part of what the joy is spending time with the curtain. And you don't want, we pride ourselves at the Next Reel in being a spoiler, a spoiler podcast. But this is one of those films that you probably don't want to be spoiled for. You want to be able to experience it the way the filmmakers made it. And so don't see the trailer.
Yeah, it'll make it a bit of a challenge here, but I think we can pull it off in our front piece here of talking about what we like about this film, recommendations, all of that, without getting too much into the spoiler pieces. I mean, we may be speaking some broad generalities like that, but I think this is really a film to let the story unfold and to have patience with it, because I think there is a payoff at the end of going on this journey. But so to start, I should say, I went to watch this film and my wife said, "Oh, okay, what are you watching for Trailer Rewind?" And I said, "Antebellum." And she said, "Oh, okay, a movie about the South." So she said, not interested if we're either getting into, history or that of, not interested in digging back into that territory again. So I think that that title tells us that. I mean, that's something that is commonly associated with that word, is we're dealing with the South, the Civil War, all of that. And so when we talk about this film, again, we put this in our little trio of films talking about race relations in America and what this film has to say about that. And I think it was a nice way to tie up everything in that trio of films. And it's something that I'm torn on this one in terms of like where I might categorize it, because
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Well, see, here's the
about
thing.
this?
So we're in the
Yeah.
the pre spoiler part of the show. I'm going to say that it should be alongside some films in this part, and then when we get to the spoiler section, I'm going to say it should be alongside other films after that. So it really is, honestly, at this stage, with what you know or what you should know going into Antebellum, it should be along the lines of Get Out. It should be in this kind of thing where it's dread, a film that's high drama related to race with an unknown creep factor that is related to dread. And it's really, really effective in delivering that dread and drama throughout the film. Now, the secrets of the film and the sort of mythology and the, what Tommy would say, the book of the vampire about what's going on in the film, it's a different thing, but it's the kind of thing that you learn in a movie like Get Out too. And you can love Get Out without knowing that stuff in advance, and that's the way you should view Antebellum too. So wherever you put Get Out, if it's in horror, then I think Antebellum belongs there. If it's someplace else, if it's just drama or high race drama or something like this, then it falls in that spot. But I have when we get to the spoiler section, I have other films that I want to put alongside it too.
So I guess you could say if you're interested in a film that's going to delve into race relations in America, in this era, what dealing with slavery of the South, all of that, place in American history, and sort of, I guess, investigating that. This is, know that it's, that subject matter, it's going to hit head on. So you've got physical violence going on. You've got humanity at its worst. It's brutal. So this is not Gone with the Wind, right? This is a really brutal look at the harshness of life on a plantation. And again, I think even the opening shot, you talked about dread and creep factor, and there was something about that because I timed it. It's really one single shot, as far as I can tell.
Yeah, I think they faked a couple things in it, but yeah, it's a beautiful use of a oneer idea. Yeah.
7.5 minutes, really. It's basically that up till we get our title cut, and not a lot of dialogue. It's just we start at the front of the plantation where everything's nice and friendly, and it's a wonderful life to live here on this great plantation, and a young girl running in a bright yellow dress. And then we slowly just push back further, deeper and deeper into the land, and to the point where we've got two soldiers that are fighting or restraining a black man. And so we've gone from everything's all rosy up front to the dark brutality that's behind all of that. So it's set, to me, it sets up everything that you need to know, sort of tonally, I would say, in that first shot, because there's something odd about some things. We see who we will learn is one of our main characters, sort of slung across the back of a horse and being brought back to the slave quarters. Exactly. So we don't know where she was, but something was going on with her, and it really got me curious. It set the stage for the drama that was going to unfold, and I was in with that. It was a beautiful shot. It told me where we were, introduced our main character that we would know a little bit more about, and the basic conflict of life on this plantation there. Now, things will get further into that, but that, if you're comfortable with that, and like I said, there is a little bit of the creep factor in there, and I don't know if it's just the music or the slow, deliberate pace of the shot, that tracking shot, or just really the brutality that happens when we've got a slave being, killed right there in front of us. If after that 7.5 minutes, your sensibilities are offended and you feel like this is not for me, do not stick with this film.
I had to take a break. It's right at the end. Yes. Like as soon as we get out of the oneer and we've got the slave on the ground saying, "Kill me." I was like, okay, I'm going to put this down for tonight. That's when I started last night. And then I came back to it this morning because it was so heavy. It's really intense. And there is that feeling of creepiness and dread and what's going on here. It's intense.
So it, yeah. And so, yeah, categorizing it, okay, yeah, historical drama, all of that, but really heavy. And I think tackling the brutality head on.
Right.
So yeah, that's where you're going.
And you could
Um,
even maybe call it, I mean, it's not theatrical gore, but you could call it graphic,
right.
right? It's very graphic in
Yes.
the way that it
I,
approaches the violence and the situations. You have to be prepared for some of the real brutality. And I've never seen, what is it, Midsummer, but that's how
okay.
Midsummer's been explained to me too, is that it's just really graphic and the situations are dealt with in a very sort of straightforward way. And this, I mean, this is shot bold and beautiful and scary and intense. And that's what you're going to get the entire time through this movie.
Yeah. And so by sort of delving into America's dark, you know, brutal history, there's some commentary that's going to come, and we'll get into that as we get into our discussion after recommendations of all of that it's saying. But this is if I can look back to if Beale Street Could Talk, that was one that brought questions to the table with a story that was comfortable to watch. I mean, there's still ugly parts to it, but it was not as confrontational. This is far more in your face confrontational, still bringing these questions and bold statements about race relations in America. Like there's a lot going on here. So if that is not within your comfort zone, this is not a movie for you. The genre, yeah, there are elements of horror because there is some suspense to the story, but it is really just that we've got that drama. And for me, it was a better film than I expected, because this is a film that sort of fell off of the radar. It didn't get a theatrical release due to COVID, so it sort of just showed up on streaming. And I feel like it didn't have that opportunity in the theater to find an audience. So on streaming, it got lost, which is why it's one that wanted to make sure we talked about, because I feel like it's of a piece with our other two films in this series. But how, it is a tough watch. So how did you end up rating this? Because I know that can be a challenge of
it was, and it was, I took lots of breaks. There were certain times where I could only really do a 15-minute chunk and then stop, or even less. I think 15 minutes probably even long for what I needed in this movie. But I gave it 4 stars and a like. And really, it's a very intense story that's shot beautifully, and it has a nonlinear storytelling arc to it, and it's done in a way that's really, really wonderful. And that's, I think, why we're being so protective of the spoilers here, and why we suggest not watching the trailer. Because if you enjoy that sort of piece, if you enjoy the story unfolding and sort of telling itself to you without knowing what's going on, there is added elements of mystery and questioning in this movie that is going to be ruined for you with the spoilers. So that stuff I really liked. I think they did it in a really interesting way, and I didn't expect it. I was assuming something was going to happen, and it didn't happen. So I gave it 4 stars and a like. And on my flick chart, it came in a really interesting place. It's in 91 out of 270, and it's just below Black Panther, which I find interesting because there's the race connection there, and then just above Mank, which Mank is a wonderful film, but it didn't have the same sort of emotional effect on me, and that's why I kind of put it there. So 91 out of 270. How about you?
Okay, well, it didn't come in as high. See, I'm torn because I just watched it today, and so I'm still processing some of the things. So it took its time. I feel like this is a film that really took its time. At a certain point, I felt like, where is this going? I'm spending a lot of time, and I'm waiting for a big conflict to be set up. I mean, there's plenty of conflict going on, but like, where is this going? What is this story trying to tell me? And I felt like, okay, it's gotta get to its point sooner or later. It does. And then bam, does it, a lot is going on there. So I put it at 3.5. I feel like I might get to 4 stars, maybe at the end of our conversation, maybe on a rewatch, because I feel like the end, I'm trying to balance out is the payoff that I get at the end worth the time that I spend going in. And I have to look at pacing and seeing how it's setting things up. This is a film that I think will benefit from rewatch at looking how this story is structured and the elements that are in there. It ended up at on my flick chart at 190 out of 799, which is right there in a mix of these 3.5 star films. So on the next reel, Pete and Andy had talked about Naked Lunch. Earlier this year, it was a film I hadn't seen for a while. This is right below Naked Lunch. So when we talk weird sort of horror, weird things going on, it's right there. And then just above the 400 Blows, which I know is a classic film. It's not one that I really clicked with. So it's in a really weird mix. And I was even looking to see, is there another Trailer Rewind film anywhere in proximity to this? And there isn't. But I will say about 10 spaces ahead of Antebellum is The Social Network. So I know that's, so it's in a good mix of really quality things. And I probably am due for a re-ranking on some things like The Social Network, which I feel should be a bit higher. But that's where I put it. We are anomalies in our rating of this film because it has a weighted average review on Letterboxd of 2.6 based on, and this is interesting, 23,433 reviews.
So that sounds low to me, but the other thing about it is that not just on rating, but on reviews too. But one thing that I will say about this movie, because we're, again, being so cagey with the spoilers and whatnot, I would say I think that there is going to be difficulty when people come to this film because, we talked about what shelf it would be on, how this kind of thing. I think there's a lot of expectations about this film being one thing, and it definitely will not be the thing that you expect it to be. That's the thing about this movie. So you have to enjoy that ride. And I think if you were going expecting one kind of movie and then when it gets unlocked, it's not that kind of movie, I think you will end up with a little bit of a lower rating. So that's I'm making an excuse for Letterboxd here, assuming that that's kind of what's happening with these ratings.
Well, and IMDb is no different. It has a rating of 5.7 based on 23,415 votes. So, but they're right there. I mean, there's a difference of 18 reviews where typically we'll see something skewing high, so many more reviews on IMDb or so many more over on Letterboxd, where there's a clearly, it's more mainstream entertainment. We'll see higher reviews on IMDb. Oh, this is a little bit more artsy or more international appeal. Oh, we'll see more on Letterboxd. The fact that it's nearly identical for both, I feel like this is a film that hasn't found its audience. And I think you're right on with the fact that people may go in with expectations. And I had not watched the trailer before this. I knew very little about it. I pushed play and just went along with this and thought, okay, let me experience this story that they're going to tell and see where it takes me. And I think that is the best way to do this. I mean, clearly, I think we're giving enough information that will alert people if this is really not for them, they can avoid this. But for everybody else, I would say don't go look for more information on this film. And I think you will find this a really engaging and interesting viewing experience.
Yeah, agree. Scary, creepy, drama. Go get it.
So that's our recommendation. I don't think we can spend much more time here because we're going to run out of things to say. But you can check out Antebellum on Hulu. If you're really, really not sure, I mean, you can risk the spoilers as we dive into our conversation about Antebellum. But before we do that, we need to give credit where credit is due. Trailer Rewind is a member of the True Story FM Entertainment Network. You can check out all the great podcasts over at truestory.fm. Our episodes are engineered by the wonderful Pete Wright, and our intro music is Doodah by Ian Post. Okay.
All right.
Now we can. Okay. If you're still listening, we're going to jump into spoilers. It's going to happen because there's a lot going on. So this is your final warning, and feel free to be spoiled. That's fine. I just really think it's going to destroy your experience because after watching this trailer, if there were so many things that I knew, it's going to undermine these things and I guess the thing that I think is comparison that you could make is it's got that M. Night Shyamalan type of twist piece to it where things come together. But I mean, structurally, we spend 38 minutes in our sort of front story. And if we just talk about that piece, I mean, that's our, when I look at time frame, of everything, which will become important as we delve deeper into things. We've got our opening scene, and then that we talked about, and then we've got a scene with Eden and the general, or him, or
the general,
the man in charge, when she gets branded for her refusal to say her name, and then we get a jump 6 weeks later. So 6 weeks later, we're jumping ahead, and that's where we have more. We learn a little bit more about what's going on the plantation with a new delivery of slaves to work the fields.
Yeah, terrible.
Yes, exactly. But we get that sense of like life on there. There's all kinds of unusual and unique things going along. I'm curious as to why, as Eden is walking within her room, she takes big steps to avoid stepping on certain floorboards. And I thought, okay, is this because it's a decrepit building and they're rotted? She's gonna fall through. It's setting something up. I'm like, what? Why this thing? Is this a way she entertains herself? Because we learn that they can't talk at all. The slaves are told, you do not talk unless you are given permission to talk by one of the masters. You cannot talk to each other. So it's a really oppressive environment. I thought, okay, is this something she's doing?
And the whole time I'm thinking this is supernatural. I mean, honestly, that's the thing, right?
All right.
She's doing this like thing where she's got choreography to get to the door. She's like anointing the door, trying to get it so it's not going to squeak and all this stuff. And they do this really clever thing where Eli comes to the door and she does the dance, to do it very silently, and he prompts her, and then she tells him to be patient or whether, shuts the door, goes back to the bed, and then a different person comes to the door. I think it's the new girl. And she just gets up and walks there. So you're thinking, why the difference? And then Eli's gone, and like there's all this chance for something to be supernatural here, which is where this movie had me going the entire first 40 minutes, that there was something different happening underneath the surface.
Yes. Well, yeah, because the new arrival, her name is Julia, and
her assigned name is Julia.
Apparently, her assigned name is Julia, and she seems to know of Eden. She knows of her. You're from Virginia. I'm from South Carolina. What are you doing about this? Like, she's got some power, respect, authority, something that people look to her that, and what is that? And this is where I wondered about what had happened at the beginning when she's being brought in, strapped across the back of a horse. So where was she? Where was she coming from? Clearly there's some punishment being dealt out. It looks like there was probably an escape attempt, and they're planning for another one coming soon. So, but at this point I'm thinking, okay, this is like 12 Years a Slave, right? I mean, this is my historical, like, what is life like? Clearly this is something different. And I think as they bring in the new cartload of slaves, our sort of main taskmaster there says, this is what a reform plantation. So things are different here. So that's why there's no speaking and any of that. And then we see them, working the fields, picking the cotton, and that's life on the plantation that we see there. But there's something, I can't put my finger on it, but there was something just slightly off. There was something unusual about it, and there's nothing that I could point to specifically. And I'm thinking, is it the writing, the filming? No, this all seems to be working, but there's something that just feels, it's that creep factor, that there's something not quite right in it, and maybe it is the supernatural aspect of that.
Yep.
But it's yes, and that's where we get to our transition.
40 minutes
unless
in.
there's anything else. 40 minutes in,
we hear a cell phone ringing.
She's laying down to sleep. We hear a cell phone, and it's a great transition.
She wakes up in
because you can't
a bed.
She wakes up in bed with her husband. All right. The pillowcase pattern matches everything. There's maybe a minor lighting shift, and then we, shift angles, and okay, now we're in 2020, and we see that she's not living on a plantation. We quickly learn that she is a well-known author.
So for me, she's having a dream that she dreamt this whole thing, right? And that she had this very elaborate dream of these 6 weeks and all these different pain things. And she's the film doesn't tell you, though. The film just infers that there's this connection between Eden and Veronica, which is what we learned her name is. But it doesn't tell you. And I love that. I love that they just let you experience the story like this, because you're wondering as an audience member, what's going on here? How do I compute what's happening here? Which you won't be doing if you see the trailer. So don't see the trailer, because this scene that we're talking about at 40 minutes in becomes the first scene of the trailer.
Right. Yes. And they do a nice job of, I think they're really setting this up as this is a dream, because as she gets out of bed, she puts her hand to her back, sort of where she'd been branded as like, oh, there's some residual pain of like, oh, like something happened to me in my dream. And then we see there's nothing there. It's, there's nothing supernatural going on. It's just, okay, I had a dream, and okay, maybe I've got a sore muscle from something that happened, and my dream, it was this thing. But yeah, we then spend, another approximate half hour in this story, which is where we, learn about Veronica's role as an author, and we see her, on a news show. Basically, we're dealing with, inequality in America and her states. And
we see shadows of her dream show up in her life with a woman who played a character, Jenna Malone, who played a character in her dream. Again, not her dream, but this is what they're leading you to believe. It comes in and is this really sort of creepy, demanding person that's on a Skype call with her. I mean, it's just all this really interesting seeding for what the film is not telling you, just letting you experience in Veronica's life.
Yeah.
Janelle Monáe.
But
Janelle Monáe is the actress.
Yes. And we're getting this strong sense of who she is. And so she is a speaker at a conference, and we see that she's calling for radical change. She's calling for revolution of like, it's time to put aside this, quiet, role of we're just going to, consent to things by being quiet, and we need to stand up and embrace our identities. And so you see the response from the crowd, and that she's a best-selling author, and she's got some friends that are also speaking at this event. So we get a sense of her community, what her role in society is, people looking up to her. She's a force for change in America, which is very important to where things go later. But yeah, everything's played very straight, then there's odd things. And she even says feels like she's having an off day because there's a mysterious delivery of flowers to her. She goes to make a reservation at a restaurant, and just the exchange with the concierge is off. And I'm looking at this.
Well, because all this is happening in the South. I believe it's in Louisiana.
Right.
So yeah.
Yes. Yeah, but it reminds me of, Beale Street, of we're seeing it from the experience of a Black woman. And so it's like, if you or I go to make reservations for dinner with a concierge, it's like, yeah, okay. For her, successful, powerful businesswoman, should be easy, right? Well, hold on just a moment. Let me take this call. Okay, she asked for the reservation, and basically the response is like, okay, I'll take care of that. And then
nothing. Flat.
Will they?
Yeah, and they didn't really, but yeah.
So, and then we get to the dinner scene, which is, oh, your table is back here, like back near the kitchen in the back of the house. It's like, no. It's like, this is where we're sitting. We're going to be over here, being assertive, embracing their power, and say, no. There's plenty of room in this restaurant, and it's that dynamic that kept me going. But I started to wonder, what's the point of the story?
And you just feel the dread the whole time, because you've been planted this thing. You've seen, the creepy woman from Skype that is this person that you've seen in the first 40 minutes being a part of this really negative slave situation. You've seen her sneak into Veronica's room and sabotage some things and all these things, and like put her hair in her bed. There's all these things, again, that lead you to believe that there's something supernatural going on. But that's not actually what happens. It's just intense drama and fire as the women get split up at the end of their dinner.
That was a surprise to me, and it was probably the most.
Oh, yeah.
I guess that's where I thought, okay, this is the scary part. This is the horror part. This is the, you've got three women coming from dinner. One says, Victoria's like, I'm going back to my room. I got a 6 a.m. flight. So she's taking an Uber. Her friends are taking Uber to go out clubbing, whatever. And she gets in her Uber, and, the music is really loud. She gets a phone call. The phone call is from the Uber driver saying, I'm here at the restaurant to pick up. She's like, no, I'm in the Uber. And that's where things take this bizarre, freakish turn, because you think, okay, that's possible.
Right. Oh,
this
yeah,
is possible.
Completely possible. Yes.
You get in the wrong car, or somebody wants to abduct you, which we see happening here. Of like, oh no, because it's not only the driver. There's somebody in the seat behind her. And so this is clearly an abduction that's going on. And it just,
when she's abducted, and the shot of her fighting for her life, biting him and all this stuff, while her girlfriends are in the car next door, this amazing shot, and you see how close salvation is, but then they turn away as she's still going. Oh, it was really well done. Very intense.
Yes. Oh yeah. And then she gets her head smashed against the window, knocked unconscious. And then we hear a cell phone ring. And we're back on the plantation. And then the general gets up and goes outside and pulls a cell phone out of the saddlebag of the horse.
It was so awesome, because this is where all of a sudden now there's nothing supernatural going on. Now it's something else. And this was my moment that reminded me of Tesla, where in Tesla, when they're at the table at the World's Fair, and Edison gets up and goes to the bar and starts scrolling through his phone. And I'm thinking, now that didn't make any sense. But here in this movie, this is brilliant. This is a brilliant reveal for what's going on, and to show us that it isn't something that we have been creeped out about for the last, hour and 20 minutes. It is something that's very straightforward and still very horrifying in a very real and scary way. And this is where you start to realize it's a movie that belongs alongside like The Hunt, which we did for the film board, where it's this really tough to believe reality, but oh my gosh, it's happening, and it's shot in this amazing way, and all of this stuff comes flooding to you when the general goes outside and pulls out his cell phone from his Confederate horse.
Yes, and that's where your mind rolls back through everything that you've seen, which is the slaves being shot, the slaves being burned in the weird burn house, because we see the woman that's shot
being
early on
offered as like courtesans to the Confederate soldiers. Just
oh yes, and then we realize the Confederate soldiers are just a bunch of young guys that playing soldier, and it got the creep factor went off the scale for me as I realized that we were dealing with something in contemporary times of what world have they created, we're gonna relive this experience because this is our power play. We are white men in power. We're exerting our force and control over these people. And then we see, this is where things accelerate very quickly. You start to realize, okay, these people are being selected. Who are the threat to power? Because we see that conversation back in 2020 when we see the family, Veronica and her family around the TV, and her daughter who sees her arguing with a white man. And she said, well, why was he so angry? And she said, well, sometimes, anger is hiding fear, right? And it's this whole threat to that power structure. And we see that now this is the response of, we're going to create a little community of reenactment of this, where we are the Confederate soldiers and we've got these slaves on the plantation that we get to have our way with, to boss around, to kill when we feel it's appropriate and necessary. And it just, the dark icky came all over me at that point. And I thought, okay, what are we doing here? How do we get out of this? Because now I don't know where the story's going to go, because I thought, oh, if we were dealing with a dream, okay. If we were dealing with something supernatural, okay. Now I'm like, all bets are off, because I don't know what's going to happen with Veronica and her crew that are, going to try to escape.
I wish it was
she's
a
got
crew.
some type of plan.
Just her and a guy.
Well, yes.
I wish it was
I
a
thought
crew.
maybe there was going to be more.
Yes.
I thought maybe I kept hoping there was
Me too.
maybe going to be more. Oh, because this is where we see that Julia, who had said she was pregnant now, has a miscarriage as a result of being
in
kicked
the stomach. Yeah.
in the stomach by one of the young men and hangs herself. And that's the final straw where Eden/Veronica is okay tonight. We're going to make our move. We're going to do what we can to get out of here. And the phone becomes an integral part of that. And this is one of the things that I found very compelling in this storytelling. Often their writers are looking for a way to get rid of cell phones because it's an object of convenience because, okay, I need to isolate somebody. Well, they've got a cell phone, so it's got to get dropped in the sink or in the water or the screen's cracked or something because we can't have people have cell phones because it can just defeat so many plot, devices. But here it's, okay, this is their lifeline outside, wherever they are in the middle of nowhere. We now have a cell phone, and now it's all the things that we know about cell phones. And is it going to work for them? Can we get a call to 911?
Yeah.
How do we get the phone unlocked with the general's face, right? How do we do these things? Because now we've got people that, okay, this is our lifeline. This is now the thing that can save us, is if we can somehow connect to the outside world, and just all of the drama that goes around that piece of acquiring they have the phone, they then lose the phone, they have to reacquire the phone, they have to unlock the phone, they have to get a call out, calls are getting dropped, they need to get their location sent out, and all of that it was great suspense. It was that great suspense of, are they going to get caught? What is going to happen with this phone? Is the battery going to die? What's going on? I thought, okay, because I don't know where the story's going of who's going to be the victor in this, because with what's been set up and what I feel like this film is going to say, I can see it going either way.
It could have.
People are horrible and evil, and this racism in America is a threat, and it's flourishing. And look at the damage it does to America. Because now I'm looking at in the context of everything happened in 2019 and 2020, and it's still ongoing when it comes to brutality and violence. And I thought, okay, I have no guarantee that by just being our main character that Veronica is surviving this film.
Yes, there's no way to know. And the drama is great. The way that they deal the drama is wonderful. And the suspense of the phone is a good thing. And she calls her husband, which you're thinking, don't call your husband, figure out. But honestly, she's going to send out her location. She needs someone to be able to receive it from a phone that they've never seen before. I mean, there actually was a news story just today. You said it's October 26th, about there was a Colorado hiker who was lost on one of the tallest mountains in Colorado. And they called him 26 times and he ignored all the calls because it was from a number he didn't know. He was lost.
Just saw that article,
but he thought it was. I mean, and that's the thing. So actually, this plot point makes a whole lot of sense. You can understand why writers are looking to get rid of cell phones, because that's going to become dated at some point. But the point, it's really well done. And then, all of the fight scenes and the dramatic survival fights that they have are very intense, and you are along for the ride the whole way. I particularly liked where I didn't understand why she was doing it, dragging the general by the Confederate flag after she'd kind of won some of her freedom into the burn shed. And I didn't get it. But then the way that they made it with the action of her being able to trick the other guys who come to aid into there and locking them in. It was such a powerful scene for her to light up this burn shed with these three guys in it and hear the screaming and her walking away with the big torch. Really powerful scene there.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah. Everything comes together so well. All the pieces have bher set up.
Yeah, and she escapes on the general's horse. And there was a toss away thing earlier on where, while she's texting with her husband, her husband says, and your daughter's going to be an equestrian champion, just like her mom. And of course, at the moment you're like, no big deal. But then of course she gets in a mad horse chase with these people, and it's really good. I mean, it feels like everything was earned. It does. I could see how you might come to this film and think, oh, well, that's a little cheap, or doing that. But I feel like the story was well written and well delivered in the way that all of those things felt earned to me. And I was along for the ride for all of that.
Oh, yeah. And the fact that now we are in current times with, but still within the Confederate setting. So when she's being chased on horseback and there's soldiers coming after her, what's very interesting is they're not using period
No,
equipment.
they're using automatic rifles.
They're using automatic rifles that look like, that they've equipped for this, because it's not like, okay, fire, reload, and it's they're shooting off rapid rounds after her through this horse chase, and we then have our confrontation with our other our other creepy character, who is apparently the general's daughter, I believe. Yeah. Exactly. And so we've got even the suspense of that chase, and then the sort of payoff of her death at the foot of the Robert E. Lee monument of everything. But again, that's another one of our sort of, okay, Veronica's now seeing where she is. Okay, we've got this monument to Robert E. Lee. Where am I? What's going? And then as she charges out and then finds herself in the midst of at that point, I'm assuming this is just like, weekend warriors that are just doing like their Civil War reenactment thing and all of that, because she comes out and they're just in the middle of a battlefield. We'd heard the sounds of battle.
Right, they've given us those,
throughout. There was always references to that. We were hearing the gunfire, all that, but now she jumps into the midst of this and is just,
and as she's doing that,
torch, the Union jacket that she's got on, her hair, and
bleeding,
gorgeous.
And like with a hatchet in her hand, like this whole thing. And when they did shoot her coming out of the hidden area, right, they did show the no trespassing signs, and they show the three men who were chasing her like come to a stop at the edge. And that was really effective, because up until that point, even with the Civil War reenactment, you don't know if all of these people are in on it. Like you could think that that's still the case, but the shot in particular of Janelle Monáe on the horse just beginning to scream as she kind of comes to, it's all shot very tightly, and it's in this way of like, how did they secure that camera for this moment? Maybe she wasn't even on horseback to deliver it, I'm not sure, but like, wow, it was really, really powerful. I was very impressed with her performance in it.
Oh yeah, there's that shot as she's charging through through the barricades in slow motion, as you see the soldiers like going to load the cannon in slow motion, and just everything slowed down. I'm looking at this, I'm like, I just want to sit here for a while, because I'm trying to figure out where we're gonna go. Even then,
you don't know.
I don't know. I'm loving this. She's now in the midst of battle and everything, and I'm trying to figure out what what's got to be going through her mind at this time. What's going on with these, the reenactors or whatever? Because as you said, the three chasing her sort of are stopped there at the no trespassing sign. So clearly there's the main area, and there's something beyond, which is where she's come from. So she's now sort of like coming to the front, part of this, whatever group of people that, but clearly they're not expecting her. But then she keeps going, and that's where we get truly cognitive dissonance of coming past the sign that says Antebellum, Louisiana's, premier Civil War reenactment site, and you've got families with like their cooler and their t-shirts and they're just coming in to watch. And I thought, oh wow, there's so much to unpack, to unravel. And then as she gets there, the police showing up. That's, so her location has, gotten transmitted out. We get all of that, but there's so much to just unpack in terms of, history, and what are the things that we value, what are the things that we view as entertainment, because it's important to learn from the past, but if we never move past it and move forward out of it and just sort of live in it, we're just doomed to continue repeating it, which is why I think the opening quote from William Faulkner that's right there, and actually is even mentioned by the characters in conversation, which is the past is never dead. It's not even past, which is, again, speaks to, and then there's another
and also
line
led me down this supernatural path with what was happening with the early parts too, by the way. But anyway, you were going to say.
But then one of her friends that may be a relationship expert or some other type of counselor says, the unresolved past can certainly wreak havoc on the present. And those two lines, I felt like, okay, didn't think about it, because they're talking about just family and all of this, and like, no, this is about us as a nation and the unresolved past wreaking havoc on the present. We see that we haven't dealt with the Confederacy and slavery, and it's still there, and it's still flourishing. And as the general says, before she locks him up in the little burn shed of, we're everywhere.
Nowhere.
He
said,
yes,
we're nowhere and everywhere. I think my favorite, the burn shed was such an interesting symbol in the film. And I think my favorite shot, that we've talked about so many shots that we liked, but that one at the beginning was amazing too. But my favorite shot is when they have Eli, they send him to the burn shed to clean it up. And he is confronted with the reality of the fact that someone that he was close to, might have even been his significant other, was burned here. And he sees the remains and sees the necklace.
Yeah.
And as they pull out from him, I mean, he he goes crazy, like rips the clothes off his body. It's a very powerful scene. But then as they pull out from the shot, you have the visual of inside the shed and the dead, sort of black, even black and white. It wasn't shot in black and white, but it feels black and white because of the soot and the evil in the shed. But you pull out and then you see the antebellum South and all of the lush thing around it. And you see Eli in his agony on screen left, and the door divides it. It's just such a great scene, and it's so well shot. I was very, very impressed with that.
Oh, it's a visual feast to watch this, because I watched, it stuck out to me because we're in this dark, dingy gray, and then it slowly pulls out and color starts creeping in. You have that sharp contrast between two worlds, basically. Yeah, there's so many moments that work visually. It's a treat, I think, just to go back to watch those moments come together, to really see that they're so well earned. They're connected to story in so many ways. It's not just a cool shot for the sake of that. I think there's a lot of intent and meaning behind a lot of the decisions that were made and how things are filmed and shot and pieced together. And this was heavy stuff.
I wish it would have had a theatrical release. And it's interesting that we bring up The Hunt, because The Hunt has this same sort of, it's much lighter in tone, as much as you can be about, death and racism and these things, but it's played off as more campy in The Hunt than this. This is very serious throughout. Yeah. But The Hunt was the last movie that I saw in the theaters before the pandemic hit, and it was literally pandemic. Things were closing and stuff, and I feel like The Hunt actually suffered from that as well, because people were starting to get scared to go to the theaters. I think this movie Antebellum would have been really powerful for people to have those plot twists in the big screen in the theaters. I think it would have delivered with something on par with Get Out. I think it would have hit people much harder to be in that captive situation. Because, I told you I needed to take breaks throughout the whole part because I was so tense about what was happening. And I think a lot of the magic of this film is not knowing. And I rarely say that. Part of the reason I love being a part of the next reel is because I love spoilers. But this is one that honestly, it's really important to get that film going experience with this. And I think we missed out by not having Antebellum in the theaters.
I agree, because I think it is one that the theatrical experience, because of the visuals in this, would make it a very impactful experience to see. And again, having that opening weekend of people really not knowing, going in there, because now it's streaming. Yes, right.
Unless they saw the trailer, and then they're going to feel terrible. And that's the point. That's the point that we should make about the trailer. We didn't say specifically in the pre-show about how bad it is, but the trailer reveals to you that there isn't anything supernatural or there aren't any dreams. The trailer is very straightforward in the way that it tells you that this person has been kidnapped by people, and that is, I guess I can understand why they would do that. That's maybe appealing to one kind of moviegoer, but that's not the beauty of this film. The beauty of this film is the nonlinear storytelling, the slow reveal, the oh my gosh, now what does that mean? And what have I watched leading up to this? That's the kind of stuff that I think a lot of people don't want to be spoiled on. So don't ruin it by watching the trailer.
No, but as I emphasize the fact that early on, after Veronica gets branded, that we get that little title card 6 weeks later. She was abducted. She was there for possibly months. This isn't she was abducted, she's been there, it's a long weekend or whatever. This is a lifestyle for these people. She is there for months, and we don't know how long many of the others have been there before her. And we get from Elizabeth that, she picks who's there. Her father, picked Veronica to be there because, I think, of her her notoriety, fame, and power that she was doing. He wanted that, but clearly this is something where because Eli, I think she refers to him as the professor, after he's passed. So clearly, a scholar that is, a threat. So we don't know.
Well, and they talked about the 3 women at the conference were all part of academia. That was another thing. So that's something that they really talked about the sort of the battle between the past and learning and making your way towards the future. I think that's a theme in this film as well.
Yeah, but this was again a much better film than I expected. A real powerful, this is one that it's gonna engage you with questions and ask you to really think about this. Like I said, Beale Street is one that you could sit down, watch, and engage in conversation with people. This one, I think, demands a response from people of like, look at this. What are you doing about America right now? Because we're not too far from this. This is, perhaps metaphor at Antebellum, the little, Civil War reenactment site, but what it represents is an ideology that is out there in this country. And, it was very interesting once we come back to Veronica after seeing who she is and her whole book being about, we need to stand up. And now her being in this position where to survive, she cannot do that. She does not have that luxury of having a voice and standing up for, freedom and equality and all of that, and is being forced to be silenced. And to think about what that does to her as a person and having to live that life for weeks, perhaps months, to know that this is survival, and thinking about what perspective that brings to her at the end of this of, sure, when you are a scholar and you have money and you have that, it's easy to say those things, but there are people that don't have power and money and education that don't have the ability to stand up for themselves and assert their power because they need to survive and they need to put their head down and be quiet. And that is the only way that they can survive in America. And I think that's perhaps why some of the reviews are low, because people wanted something that is entertainment. They wanted a supernatural horror film that, wasn't going to challenge them to think.
That's what
but
I think.
On the other hand, we had Get Out that, had similar, supernatural weird things, but still at the end really brought some interesting topics to the table that audiences responded to. So I feel like if it had a theatrical release, maybe we'd see some different reactions to this, but it's one that it seems like the perfect way to tie up this trio of films of with a really strong one, and to wrap up the season, because there's nowhere to go from here.
Oh, and by the way, Mr. Sarmento, this is the final straw with these intense, dramatic, scary movies for me. I am going to pre-select our next season and figure out which ones I can handle and which ones I can't. Because wow, this was a really good movie. This is really hard for me to watch, and I just needed an ally. If I wasn't here watching it by myself, I would have been okay because I could have talked my way through it with someone. But I found myself talking to myself and my dog, and honestly, I was really scared. So I think I can handle a lot of stuff, but wow, were we intense this season? Just in review, we were intense.
So yes, we will. So no, so we will. We're gonna go on hiatus. We'll come back in 2022. JJ's gonna be part of the film selection process,
and
so
I'm gonna tap out when I can't handle it. That's the plan.
And he will know ahead of time if there's things he needs to tap out on. But we're gonna continue with this approach of looking at groups of films. So that's the goal. We'll as we get those lists developed, we'll be posting that to Letterboxd so you can see what direction we'll be taking in 2022 as we get that going. But it's been a heavy duty season, so we'll see if we can tackle some other areas. But yeah, so this is the end of Trailer Rewind for 2021. We had a lot of great films to go back at. I mean, a lot of heavy things. I look back at starting, you mentioned Tesla. That was part of that first, group of films, but we had things like Loose, which
Oh,
again,
wow,
heavy, but
yeah.
so,
Loose was really
so
good.
rewarding. So I think, if you're just getting into the show now, dig back into, this season. There was a lot of really good stuff that we talked about this year, a lot of heavy stuff, a lot of family drama, a lot of emotions.
And a lot of it, it really goes into this category like Antebellum, where you probably heard something about it, but you maybe didn't get a chance to see it. Whether that was because of COVID or some other reason, maybe it just skipped by, like Beale Street did for me, that kind of stuff. A lot of the movies on this list are solid films that don't get enough attention. So go back and take a look at what we've covered, especially this season, and find some gems there. They're sitting there for you.
Yes, they are. All right. Well, that's how we wrap up the season. That's how we wrap up the year. And we'll see you all in 2022. Hondo.